Poor cleaning lady. Warned the millionaire. Don't sign his move stunned everyone. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. David Miller, a millionaire tech CEO, sat at the head of a long oak conference table on the 47th floor of a Chicago high-rise. Below, the city buzzed like an ocean of lights, but in here, the world was frozen around one document. Billions of dollars and the future of his company rested on his signature. He raised the pen, seconds away from sealing the deal with Sterling Corporation. Champagne glasses clinked. Executives whispered with excitement. Leandro, his business partner since college, leaned in with a satisfied grin. "Go on, David. This is history in the making." That's when the door eased open. Almost unnoticed, a woman in a worn cleaning uniform pushed a gray cart inside. Anna, part of the night janitorial staff, spoke softly. "Sorry, just emptying the trash real quick." Nobody cared she was invisible to them. She bent beside David's chair, fingers rustling the bin liner. Then, without warning, she leaned closer. Her lips barely moved, her voice a ghost of a whisper. "Don't sign. It's a trap." David froze. The pen slipped from his hand and hit the polished wood with a faint clink. For a moment, time itself seemed to halt. His chest tightened, eyes darting from the contract to the woman, then back again. Leandro's voice cut in sharply. "David? Everything okay?" All around, anticipation hung like a storm cloud. But David Miller, a man known for decisive moves, suddenly couldn't lift his pen, and in that instant of hesitation, betrayal began to surface. David's hand trembled as he stared at the unsigned contract. The room buzzed with polite impatience. Leandro leaned forward, his smile a little too sharp. "David? Are we ready?" Javier, one of Sterling's executives, tapped his pen against the table. "We've all reviewed this for weeks. Nothing left to change." David's throat went dry. His eyes flicked toward the door, where Anna was already pushing her cart away, as if nothing had happened. The whisper still echoed in his head. "Don't sign. It's a trap." "I need 5 minutes," he said suddenly, rising from his chair. "5 minutes?" Leandro chuckled, but his tone carried an edge. "David, come on. Everyone is here." "Just 5," David repeated firmly. Without waiting for an answer, he left the room. The heavy door clicked shut behind him. In the hallway, his steps quickened. Anna was only a few paces ahead. "You," he called out, pointing toward her. "With me. Now." Startled, she froze, then nodded. They walked in silence until David pushed open the door to a small break room. He motioned her inside and shut the door firmly. He crossed his arms, eyes locked on hers. "Explain, right now. And convince me you're not insane for interrupting me like that." Anna stood straight, clutching a trash bag in one hand. Her voice shook at first, then steadied. "I overheard conversations. Things no one else did. Sterling and Leandro, they're setting you up. That contract will transfer your control, your assets, everything. Once you sign, it's gone." David blinked, his heart hammering. "That's impossible." She met his stare without flinching. "I can prove it. Documents, photos, recordings. I'll show you tonight. 7 o'clock, here. If I'm wrong, fire me." David exhaled slowly, turning toward the glass wall. Chicago stretched endlessly below, yet his world suddenly felt fragile. A janitor with nothing to gain was risking everything to warn him. He turned back, his voice low. "Bring the proof. 7 sharp. If you don't convince me, tomorrow will be your last day here." Anna nodded once, her face calm. She left quietly, pushing her cart down the hall. David remained, pressing his forehead against the cold glass, the weight of betrayal tightening around him. And for the first time in his career, he doubted his best friend. David walked back into the boardroom, his heart pounding in his chest. The room fell silent as the door shut behind him. All eyes turned his way: Leandro, Javier from Sterling, the other executives. The contract still lay on the polished table, waiting. "Did you take care of what you needed?" Leandro asked lightly, though his narrowed eyes betrayed tension. Yes, David replied. But he didn't sit down. He looked at the contract, then at the eager faces staring back. Something in his gut twisted. Let's finish this, Javier urged. We've wasted enough time. Just sign, and we can celebrate. David paused, the weight of Anna's whisper pressing harder than ever. Don't sign. It's a trap. Actually, he said slowly, I think I need to review a few clauses again. The words landed like a rock in still water. A murmur spread. Javier frowned. Mr. Miller, we've been through every line for weeks. There's nothing left to review. And that's exactly why I want one last look, David countered. His tone was firm now. He picked up the folder, closed it deliberately, and slid it into his briefcase. The silence stretched. Leandro stood slowly, his fists pressing against the table. David, this doesn't make sense. Sterling has other interested parties. We can't afford delays. David met his childhood friend's eyes, cold and unflinching. Then let them be interested. One night won't change anything. Javier slammed his palm on the table. The market's unstable. The stock is up. It's now or never. David studied his face carefully. That desperation wasn't normal. His instinct screamed that Anna was right. The decision is mine, David said firmly. He straightened, briefcase in hand. We'll reconvene tomorrow. He walked out before anyone could protest. Behind him, voices rose in frustration. But David didn't care. For the first time, doubt had sunk deep into his heart. And as the elevator doors slid shut, one thought echoed in his mind. If Anna was telling the truth, then the betrayal ran closer than he ever imagined. At exactly 7 o'clock that evening, David stepped into the quiet break room. The city lights of Chicago glowed faintly through the window, casting long shadows across the small table. Anna was already there. She rose quickly when he entered, clutching a worn backpack against her chest. Her eyes were steady now, though her hands trembled slightly. Thank you for coming, she said. Show me what you've got, David replied, lowering himself into a chair. His tone was clipped, but his eyes never left hers. Anna sat across from him and unzipped the backpack. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through files with careful fingers. It started 3 weeks ago, she began softly. I was cleaning Leandro's office when I overheard voices from the next room, his and a woman's. David leaned forward, his jaw tightening. Go on. Anna swiped to a blurry photo. This woman, Sofia Delgado, tall, blonde. She said you were too naive to notice betrayal. David's stomach dropped. Sofia, his ex-girlfriend who had walked out 2 years earlier, claiming he'd never be enough for her. Anna pressed play on an audio clip. The recording crackled, but the voices were unmistakable. Once he signs, we'll control everything, Leandro's voice said. Sofia laughed lightly. David's always been blind. It was true with me, and it'll be true now. David froze, the blood rushing from his face. His best friend, his ex, together. Anna swiped again, revealing photos of contracts, bank transfers, altered clauses. See this section? In your version, you keep 60% control. In the real one, you're left with 20. David grabbed the phone, scanning the text. His throat tightened. This is fraud. A crime. No. And here, 15 million wired from Sterling's account to Leandro's personal one. The walls of the break room seemed to close in on him. 15 years of friendship, shattered in seconds. David stood abruptly, pacing to the window. His reflection looked back at him, pale, broken. Why are you telling me this? You could lose everything. Anna's answer was simple. Because it's the right thing to do. David turned slowly, meeting her eyes. And for the first time, he realized this janitor wasn't just saving his company. She might be saving his life. The next morning, David arrived at the office earlier than usual. He hadn't slept a single hour. Anna's evidence had replayed in his mind all night, each word of that recording cutting deeper than the last. But something kept gnawing at him. How did a janitor recognize complex fraud hidden inside corporate contracts? He walked straight to human resources. Martha, the HR manager, looked up in surprise. Mr. Miller, this early? Routine check, David lied smoothly. I need Anna Santos's file. Martha hesitated but handed him a thin folder. David opened it and froze. Inside was a resume he never expected to see. Ana Santos, 28 years old. Bachelor's degree in business administration from Northwestern University. Specialization in corporate finance. Former consultant at McKinsey & Company. David's breath caught. McKinsey, one of the most prestigious consulting firms in the world. Is everything all right? Martha asked, curious. Yes, thank you. He closed the folder quickly and handed it back, his mind racing. How did someone with that background end up pushing a cleaning cart at his company? Later that day, he found Anna wiping windows in a quiet conference room. Anna, he said firmly. She turned, startled. Did you find out more about Leandro? Not yet, but I found something about you. Northwestern McKinsey. Finance. His voice sharpened. Why didn't you tell me who you really are? Her face went pale. She dropped the cloth, her shoulders stiffening. You looked into my file. Why hide it? David pressed. Anna's eyes darkened. Because it doesn't matter. No matter what degrees I have, no matter where I worked here, I'm just the cleaning lady. David stared, stunned into silence. For the first time, he realized the woman who warned him wasn't just brave, she was brilliant. And yet the world had pushed her into invisibility. Anna picked up the cloth she had dropped, her hands trembling slightly. She stared at the streaked glass before answering. You want the truth? She said, her voice bitter. I worked at McKinsey for 2 years. I was good, really good. But every time a promotion came up, there was always a reason I wasn't the right fit. First, they said I needed more experience. Then, that my communication style didn't match company culture. She gave a humorless laugh. Translation: I was too competent for the role, but didn't look the part they wanted. I didn't look like a leader to them. David's chest tightened. That's discrimination. You could have fought back. With what money? Anna shot back. And who would believe a Latina over $1 billion firm? She set the cloth aside and leaned against the window frame. For a moment, her strong facade cracked, her voice softening. My sister Maria. She was born with a heart defect. She needs a valve replacement. $200,000. Without it, doctors say she won't live much longer. David swallowed hard, the weight of her words pressing on him. When McKinsey pushed me out, I had no choice. I took whatever job I could get. Cleaning pays little, but it comes with health insurance. That insurance helps cover Maria's treatments. It's the only reason I'm still here, mopping floors at midnight instead of running numbers in a boardroom. The room went silent except for the faint hum of the city outside. David looked at her with new eyes. This wasn't just a janitor who stumbled onto a secret. This was a brilliant woman forced into invisibility, sacrificing everything for her family. And yet, even from that low position, she had chosen to risk it all to protect him. For the first time, David felt ashamed, not for her, but for himself. That evening, as most employees filed out of the glass towers of Miller Technologies, Anna stayed behind to finish her shift. She didn't notice the footsteps echoing down the hall. Leandro's deep voice drifted closer, low and sharp. I told you, something's off with David. He hesitated yesterday, and today he's been acting strange. Another voice answered, female, laced with irritation. Anna froze. It was Sophia. You think he suspects? She asked. I don't know, Leandro muttered, his tone dark. But I checked the cameras. Yesterday, when we were finalizing the details, the cleaning lady was in my office. She might have heard us. Anna's breath caught in her throat. Her heart hammered as she pressed herself against the bathroom wall, listening. Sophia's heels clicked on the marble. So what if she did? She's just a janitor. No one will believe her. Leandro's voice hardened. Don't underestimate her. David was different after she came in. He delayed the signing. He asked questions. That's not coincidence. A pause. Then Sophia asked, What do you want to do? Simple, Leandro said coldly. We'll get rid of her. Permanently. I'll accuse her of stealing confidential files. Once she's fired for cause, she loses her paycheck, her insurance, everything. And David? Even if he doubts me, he won't risk siding with a janitor over his best friend. Oh, Sophia gave a soft, cruel laugh. Perfect. He'll never see it coming. Anna covered her mouth, trying to control her breathing. They knew. They were planning to destroy her. The intercom crackled suddenly. All employees, Report to the main auditorium for an urgent safety meeting. Anna's knees weakened. She understood instantly this wasn't about safety. It was a setup. Straightening her shoulders, she whispered to herself, "No matter what, I won't let them break me." Oh, and with that, she walked toward the trap, awaiting her. The main auditorium buzzed with confusion. Hundreds of employees whispered to one another, wondering why they had been called so suddenly. David sat in the front row, his brow furrowed. He hadn't been told anything either. Then the stage lights came on. Leandro walked to the podium, holding a thick manila folder. His expression was grave, his voice booming through the microphone. "Thank you for gathering so quickly," he began. "I regret to inform you that we face a serious breach of security inside this company." A ripple of shock spread through the crowd. "Yesterday, confidential documents were photographed and removed from executive offices," Leandro continued. "This is corporate espionage." Anna, standing near the back wall, felt her stomach drop. She already knew where this was going. Leandro flipped open the folder and held up printed photos. "After a thorough investigation, we have identified the culprit. Anna Santos, cleaning staff. Step forward." Every head turned. A wave of murmurs rolled through the auditorium. Some looked confused, others judgmental. Anna forced herself to walk down the aisle, her legs shaking but her chin lifted. "Miss Santos," Leandro said coldly, "these images were found on your phone. Photos of confidential contracts. How do you explain this?" Gasps echoed. Papers were passed down the front row. David took one, staring at it, his face twisting with conflict. Anna's voice cracked but remained firm. "I wasn't stealing. I was protecting—" "Protecting what?" Leandro cut her off sharply. "Your own interests? Were you planning to sell this to a competitor?" "No!" Anna cried out. "I was protecting Mr. Miller." She turned desperately toward David. "You saw the evidence. You know I'm telling the truth." The room grew silent. All eyes shifted to David. His jaw tightened. His heart pounded. He wanted to defend her, yet Leandro's gaze bore into him, daring him to speak. Anna's hands clenched at her sides. This was her moment of truth. But the question hung heavy in the air. Would David stand by her, or let her be destroyed in front of everyone? The silence in the auditorium was suffocating. Hundreds of employees waited, their eyes flicking between David at the front and Anna standing alone under the harsh lights. David gripped the paper tighter, his knuckles white. He wanted to speak, to defend her, but doubt gnawed at him. If he stood against Leandro without concrete proof, he could lose everything. Leandro sensed his hesitation and pounced. He slammed the folder shut, his voice slicing through the tension. "Security!" Two guards in black uniforms strode down the aisle. Murmurs rose into a roar. Anna's heart pounded. "Wait. Please, listen." But Leandro pointed at her like a judge delivering a sentence. "Escort her out of the building immediately. Effective today, Anna Santos is terminated for gross misconduct and theft of company property." The crowd gasped. Some whispered in disbelief. Others shook their heads. The guards grabbed her arms. Anna struggled, her voice desperate. "David, you know I'm not lying. You heard the recording. You saw the transfers." All eyes turned again to David. He rose halfway from his chair, his lips parting. Then he froze. Leandro's hand clamped down on his shoulder, firm and brotherly in appearance but heavy with unspoken warning. "Don't let her manipulate you," Leandro said smoothly, loud enough for the crowd. "You've always been too trusting, David. That's why you need me." Anna's eyes burned with tears as the guards dragged her toward the exit. Her gaze never left David's. "If you let them silence me, you'll lose everything." The doors slammed shut behind her. The auditorium erupted questions, outrage, gossip flooding the air. But David heard none of it. His pulse thundered in his ears. He had just watched the only person brave enough to warn him be humiliated and thrown out. And deep inside, he knew he had made the worst mistake of his life. Anna stumbled as the guards shoved her out through the glass doors of Miller Technologies. The night air hit her face like ice. She clutched her backpack tightly, blinking away tears as the lobby lights behind her dimmed. For years she had endured humiliation quietly, but this being branded a thief in front of hundreds cut deeper than anything before. She sank onto the cold steps, covering her face with her hands. For a moment, despair swallowed her. Without this job, Maria's treatments would stop. Without insurance, her sister's life was on the line. But then she remembered Leandro's words. Once she's fired, she loses everything. Her tears dried into steel. "No," she whispered. "You don't get to decide my fate. Not you, not Sophia, not anyone." Anna rose, her shoulders squared against the wind. She still had the recordings, she still had photos, and she still had the truth. Inside the building, David sat alone in his office. The echoes of the auditorium still rattled in his chest. Anna's last words haunted him. "If you let them silence me, you'll lose everything." He unlocked his computer, pulling up the contract file Leandro had given him. His eyes scanned the clauses, line by line. Something wasn't right. He opened the metadata timestamps, authorship, version history. There it was, modified not by his legal team, but by an outside consultant tied to Sterling. 3 days ago. His stomach knotted. She had been telling the truth. David leaned back in his chair, pressing his hands against his face. What have I done? For the first time, he saw Leandro not as a partner, but as a predator. And Sophia, the fact she was involved, tore open old wounds he thought had healed. He shut the laptop with trembling hands. If Leandro knew Anna had proof, then she was in danger. Real danger. David grabbed his coat and rushed for the elevator. Because if he didn't find her tonight, he might never see her again. The cab pulled into a crumbling apartment complex on Chicago's South Side. David stepped out, the air heavy with the smell of damp concrete and fried food from a corner stand. He checked the address Anna had listed on her employee file. Apartment 3B. He climbed the narrow staircase, each step creaking under his weight. At the top, he found a worn wooden door with peeling paint. He hesitated, then knocked. There was a shuffle inside, then the door opened. Anna stood there, shocked to see him. Her eyes were red from crying, but she quickly wiped them with her sleeve. "Mr. Miller? What are you doing here?" "I had to see you," David said quietly. "And I had to tell you, you were right, about everything." Anna's lips parted, but before she could answer, a weak voice called from inside. "Anna, is that the nurse?" David peered past her. On a shabby couch lay a teenage girl, pale, tubes running from her nose to a portable oxygen tank. Her chest rose in shallow, labored breaths. "This is Maria," Anna whispered. Her tone softened instantly, all her defenses gone. She rushed to her sister's side, adjusting the blanket. "She's 17, congenital heart defect. We're waiting for the surgery." David's throat tightened. The harsh fluorescent bulb flickered overhead, casting the room in cold light. He saw the stacks of unpaid bills on the table, the second-hand medical supplies, the unopened letter marked final notice. "Anna," his voice faltered, "you carried all this and still risked your job to protect me." Tears welled in her eyes, but she shook her head firmly. "I couldn't watch you walk into their trap. I'd rather lose everything than stay silent." David's gaze fell on Maria again. In that fragile body, he saw the stakes of Anna's sacrifice. And in that moment, his determination hardened. He wasn't just fighting for his company anymore. He was fighting for them. David sat down on the edge of the couch, his eyes still fixed on Maria's fragile figure. She smiled faintly at him, unaware of the storm raging outside her small world. Anna tucked the blanket around her sister and whispered, "She thinks every knock at the door is good news, a new chance. But lately, it's only bills." David clenched his fists. The guilt was crushing. He had stood by silently, while Anna was humiliated. When she had risked everything for him. "Anna," he said firmly, his voice low but steady, "this ends now. I won't let them take my company, and I won't let them destroy you." She looked up at him, wary, almost afraid to believe. "David, they have power, money, connections. They can bury us." "Maybe," he admitted, leaning forward. "But they've underestimated you, and me. That's their mistake." He pulled out his phone, opening the files Anna had shared. The photos, the recordings. "They're enough to raise suspicion, but not enough to end them. We need more hard evidence. Bank records, forged documents, signatures. The kind that can't be denied in court." Anna's brows furrowed. "That means hacking into their system, tracing the shell companies. It's dangerous." David gave a dry laugh. "Dangerous is exactly what they've forced us into. If Leandro thinks I'll just hand him everything, He's forgotten who I am." He stood pacing the tiny room. His tailored suit looked out of place against the peeling paint and flickering bulb, but his voice carried a conviction Anna had never heard before. "I'll call in a favor from a forensic accountant, someone I trust. We'll trace every dollar. Meanwhile, you stay close. No more wandering the halls alone." Anna shook her head. "If they suspect I'm helping you, they'll come after me." David turned, meeting her eyes with unflinching resolve. "Then they'll have to go through me first." "Oh." For the first time that night, Anna allowed herself a fragile smile. And in that fragile apartment, a pact was sealed not just to survive, but to fight back. Over the next 48 hours, David and Anna worked in silence. Each step calculated, each moment stolen under the shadow of betrayal. Late at night in his office, David pulled financial reports, cross-checking them against Sterling's wire transfers. Numbers that once seemed routine now revealed a pattern. Millions routed through offshore accounts linked to shell corporations. Anna sat across from him, her laptop open, earbuds in. "Here," she whispered, turning the screen. Same Cayman entity appears on 3 separate contracts. Look at the timestamps they're altered. David leaned closer, his jaw tightening. Leandro signed these, and Sophia countersigned as witness. They exchanged a look. This was no small mistake, it was deliberate fraud. At dawn, David called his old college friend Marcus, now a forensic accountant. "I need you," quietly. "Verify these transfers, and build me a timeline. I'll owe you for life." By nightfall, Marcus confirmed it. "It's airtight. They funneled 15 million straight into Leandro's personal account. You take this to the board, it'll bury them." Anna exhaled, relief mixing with fear. "Then we have to act fast, before they strike first." David nodded. "Tomorrow morning, emergency board meeting. Every executive, every shareholder will hear the truth." Anna hesitated, then asked softly, "And if they try to twist it back on me again?" David's eyes darkened. "They won't. This time, I'll be the one speaking, and I'll make sure every word lands where it belongs." He closed the folder of evidence, locking it inside his briefcase. For the first time in days, his shoulders straightened. But Anna noticed something he didn't through the glass wall of his office. A shadow slipped away. Someone had been watching. She whispered urgently, "David, we're not the only ones preparing for tomorrow." The boardroom was packed the next morning. Every executive, every shareholder filled the long table, their whispers echoing under the high ceilings. The air was electric with expectation. At the head sat David, his briefcase locked beside him. Leandro lounged casually in his chair, Sophia at his side, a smug smile tugging at her lips. "Let's proceed quickly," Leandro announced. "The Sterling deal is ready to sign. Once David stops hesitating, we can secure the future of this company." But David didn't reach for the contract. He stood instead, his gaze sweeping across the room. "Before we sign anything," he said firmly, "there's something you all need to see." Murmurs rippled. Leandro's smile faltered. David opened the briefcase, pulling out a stack of documents. Over the past month, certain clauses in this merger contract were altered illegally. Control of Miller Technologies would no longer stay with this board, but be handed entirely to Sterling. The changes were hidden, disguised in the fine print. Gasps filled the room. Sophia's expression tightened. David clicked a remote. On the screen appeared a chart of bank transfers. And here, $15 million wired directly into an account under Leandro Ramirez. Documented. Verified. The room erupted. Executives shouted. Shareholders stood in disbelief. Leandro shot up, his voice thundering. "Lies. Fabricated evidence." Anna, standing quietly at the back, stepped forward. Her voice rang clear. "It's not fabricated. I recorded their conversations. I took the photos myself." David's eyes met hers briefly, steady and unwavering. "She risked everything to expose this betrayal. And now you will all hear the truth." He pressed play on the audio. Leandro's voice echoed across the boardroom. "Once he signs, we'll control everything." David's always been blind. The silence that followed was crushing. Sophia's face drained of color. Leandro's fists clenched, sweat beading on his forehead. For the first time, the board looked at them not as leaders, but as criminals. For a long, breathless moment, the boardroom was silent. The recording of Leandro's voice still hung in the air like a curse. every syllable echoing across the walls. Then the sound of footsteps thundered from the hallway. The glass doors burst open, and two uniformed officers strode inside. Behind them came the company's legal counsel, holding a warrant. "Leandro Ramirez," Sofia Delgado, the lead officer announced. "You are under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy." Loud gasps erupted. Executives scrambled back as Leandro's face twisted with rage. "This is a setup! You can't do this to me!" He tried to bolt for the exit, but the officers caught him, forcing his hands behind his back in handcuffs. Sofia's composure crumbled. She cried out, mascara streaking down her face. "Leandro, do something!" But her pleas fell flat. Another officer clasped her wrists, reading her rights as cameras from security captured everything. The boardroom was no longer a place of power. It had become a courtroom, and the verdict was clear. David stepped forward, his voice calm but cutting. "You betrayed me. You betrayed this company. And worst of all, you underestimated the one person who had the courage to tell the truth." Every eye turned to Anna. She stood near the back, still in her janitor's uniform, her hands trembling. For weeks, she had been invisible. Now the entire room looked at her with awe and respect. The chairman of the board rose slowly. "Miss Santos," he said gravely, "on behalf of Miller Technologies, we owe you our deepest gratitude. Without you, everything would have been lost." Anna's eyes filled with tears, but she held her chin high. "I only did what anyone should do, tell the truth." "No," David corrected gently, stepping closer. "You did what no one else had the courage to do." "Oh." The board voted unanimously to reinstate Anna not as cleaning staff, but as an executive consultant in corporate risk. It was a title that reflected her true skills, though Anna accepted it only because it came with one thing she needed most: the stability to protect Maria. Weeks later, under David's personal sponsorship, Maria underwent surgery at one of the best hospitals in Chicago. The operation was a success. For the first time in years, Anna saw her sister breathe without pain. One evening, as the sun set over Lake Michigan, David and Anna walked along the pier. The wind tugged at her hair, and for once, there was no fear in her eyes. "You saved more than my company," David said softly. "You saved me. You reminded me what loyalty really means." Anna looked at him, surprised by the warmth in his voice. "You gave me a chance when no one else would. That's enough." But David shook his head. "No, Anna. It's more than that." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Dropping to one knee, he opened it, revealing a diamond ring that glittered in the fading light. Gasps echoed from passers-by along the pier, but David only saw her. "Ana Santos, will you give me the honor of being more than your employer? Will you marry me?" Her hands flew to her mouth, eyes wide, tears spilling freely. For a long moment, she could only shake her head in disbelief. Then she whispered, "Yes, 1,000 times yes." David slid the ring onto her finger, and the crowd around them broke into spontaneous applause. For Anna, the girl once invisible in a janitor's uniform, and David, the millionaire who nearly lost everything, the story had come full circle. Betrayal had been defeated, truth had triumphed, and love had found its way through the shadows. And as they embraced beneath the golden sky, it was clear. This was only the beginning of a life built on courage, justice, and hope.